We all know how important first impressions are. You walk into a room, an important business meeting, and people make those snap decisions on the spot about who you are, what you're there for, and whether or not they're going to like you and enjoy their time with you. This subject is so important in terms of communication best practices, and we're lucky because we have Stacey Hankemov with us today, communication expert and author of the book, Yes, You Can. She knows a lot about how to create great first impressions, and she sat down with us and told us some of her best tools and tips. Here's Stacey.
First impressions, we've heard about that for many, many years. And it's a lot of how do you enter that room? Do you enter that room like you belong there? And once you're there, perhaps it's around a boardroom table, do you continue to earn that respect? If you could start with something as basic as your posture, that's going to be a good place to start. And I'm going to stand and demonstrate it just to give you a better feel for it. We've seen everything from people fidgeting to hands in the pockets to these type of postures, and there's so many ways that you can stand. Not that I'm saying you can't stand this way, but this isn't as open, as confident as it could be. When I show you what I'm talking about, this looks a lot more confident. And it communicates that you are ready to have a conversation. Now, a lot of it's that attraction of how do you approach someone. Well, am I going to approach someone and really welcome them, have that direct eye connection? The other piece is senior executives live a very busy world. That time is of essence to them. Respect their time by getting to the point. I think we say more than we ever need to say. And sometimes we use these qualifiers as well. Qualifiers, something that sounds like, well, what I meant to say. Well, just say it. Now, what's going to help you prevent some of those qualifying statements? Pausing, thinking on your feet, doing pre-planning, even if it's just 5 minutes of pre-planning. Getting to the point means speaking in very short, bullet point sentences, allowing yourself time to pause and think on your feet. And it's, again, very basic skill sets that are so hard to do because we stand a certain way. We may have been standing this way for years. And suddenly for someone to say, open up your posture, bring your shoulders back, and keep that stance there, it's going to take a while for you to get comfortable because it's uncomfortable. And that's probably the toughest thing to change. When the stakes get high and I'm thinking about, gosh, I remember I was supposed to stand up straight, or I'm supposed to look someone in the eye when I'm having this conversation with a senior executive, and it gets uncomfortable because it's not my new habit. How many of us roll up our sleeves and say, even though I'm not feeling comfortable, I know I'm being perceived a lot more effectively than when I fidget? Or do we go back to where we're comfortable? Because we know that's what we know.
Good. That's a great tip. Stacey, is there any truth in the idea that it's valuable to mirror what the other person looks like, sounds like, the pace, the sound of their voice, those kinds of things?
Sure. Well, if I were to sit exactly like you're sitting right now, sound like you're sounding, you might get a little scared of that, right? It's a little bit tough. And I think that's what we've done when we talk about, I'm supposed to mirror what someone does. So if someone sitting across from me has their arms crossed and they're really leaning back, I should do exactly what they're doing. That's a little extreme. When I talk about mirroring what someone does, if you're very energetic and you're leaning forward and you've got a lot of emphasis around your words, then I know it's okay for me to do that. If you tend to sit back a little further, and I can tell you really don't want me in your space, I'm not going to be forward, I'm going to keep it back. But the idea when we're talking about posture, and I talked about what you do with your eyes a little bit, I've also talked about pausing, consider it, those are the core skills. Always have them, just adapt them to who you're speaking to and that room setup, the environment that you're in.
We're going to now talk to Stacey about what you do when you walk into that room and you're surrounded by people whom you haven't met yet. How do you create a memorable networking opportunity?
It's like anything in life, if you get off on the right foot, the rest of the networking event probably will be successful. A good place to position yourself when you first get to that event, either get there early and hang out at the registration table, or stand at the front door. Meaning, if you go into and it's like a conference room, stand in the front door of that conference room and meet people as they enter. They have to go your route anyway, and that way you can just say hello, you can introduce your name. That's a big piece of it. Never bring a friend. And I think that's one of those things we love to do, and we're all guilty of it. We'll call around to our peers, our coworkers, and ask if they're going as well, because you're going to stick with them. And then what do you get out of the event? It's a waste of your time, as well as probably your friend's time. A lot of it's pre-planning. If networking makes you uncomfortable, and what usually makes people feel uncomfortable is, I don't know what to say. What do I say when I first approach someone? Pre-plan that a little bit. Figure out what question would be unique and different that someone would actually respond with more than a yes or no question. What's the typical question that you receive at a networking event?
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? Now, that's not unique. Everyone says that. And I think, too, it also comes across as, I don't have a job, lay off. Right? Rather than asking, perhaps, if you were not at this networking event, where else would you rather be?
Skydiving.
Right. And suddenly, you know what? I've got a really good friend that skydives. Do you skydive? And you suddenly hit the emotional, personal touch of someone that's what's important to them. You know, we deal with work all day long. If you build relationships off of tapping into someone's emotion. And you automatically do that with that question. Another one that I was approached not too long ago, someone approached me and said, where were you born? Where did you grow up? Rather than where are you from, because we're really not from where we grew up. But when they talked to me or they asked me, where did you grow up? I suddenly reflected back to my childhood, and they instantly tapped into my emotion, what's personal to me. And because they did that, I really felt like, here's someone that might care, and we finally don't have to talk about work.
What I love about that is it not only makes the person who you're speaking with memorable, it makes you memorable because you asked the unusual question. Stacey, thank you. Those are great tips on getting results from networking events. Thank you.
You're welcome.